definitely somebody having a little bit of a lock-up there. I think what we will see as well, quite possibly, is quite a few vortices coming off rear wings at speed, because the air is very damp. You can see quite clearly that the temperature is reasonably clement, but the sky is looking very foreboding. Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari Formula 1 garage must be looking out the window and getting itchy palms to get in the car. This is
Rainmeister.
Yes, exactly. This is a weekend just made for him.
Yeah.
Throw in some questionable weather and suddenly everything seems to play to him. Well, again, Pastor Maldonado's onboard camera showing that there are still spots of water in the air, and whether that's in the air or being thrown up by cars in front of him is immaterial. It means that it's still wet, and you saw there again as he pressed the brake pedal to try and heat the tyres, little lock-up on the right front.
Yeah, it's critical now to try and get, I mean, it always is on a warm-up lap, but particularly when it's conditions like this, get as much heat as you possibly can into the tyre. I mean, nobody's gone with treaded tyres. That's the right decision. Treaded tyres would just get shredded on a surface like this, but get as much heat as you possibly can into those tyres.
However, David Sears there and everybody else in the pit lane will be keeping very few eyes on the monitor and everything scanning the heavens, because the moment that it gets too wet, and that might be in an instant halfway through any lap of the race, then suddenly everybody's going to be scrabbling to get into the pits and to get some wet tyres on. Nicolas Lapierre is our pole sitter, ready for the start of the sprint race here in Magny-Cours. This is race 7 of the GP2 series. Nicolas Lapierre, Javier Villa on the front row of the grid, from Adrian Zaug and Vitaly Petrov. France, Spain, South Africa and Russia represented on the first 2 rows. Red lights are all on. And away they go. Good start from the pole man and from front row starter Javier Villa. He takes second place from Adrian Zaug. Vitaly Petrov into 4th ahead of Bruno Senna. And that's Conway, is it, ahead of Di Grassi? Or no, that'll be Filippi ahead of Di Grassi. So Filippi lost a place to Senna but gained 1 over Di Grassi, or Di Grassi lost 2 places, let's say. Oh, a little squeeze there. This is on the run up to the Adelaide hairpin for the first time. Looking down the inside, Adrian Zaug ahead of Bruno Senna. They just avoid contact, but Senna's very slow off the corner. Cars trying to go around either side of him as further back one of the 2 BCN cars goes off. Whether it was Tung or Yamamoto, we'll pick up a little later.
Yeah, both the front row guys got a great start. I'm amazed, actually, given the lack of grip down at the hairpin. Nobody made contact, all very well behaved.
Well, they tried very hard indeed. Zaug had to really work hard to stay off the tail, or Senna rather, off the tail of Zaug. So Javier Villa dropping back as Lapierre rockets into the lead, trying desperately to drive away from everybody else as much as he can on this opening lap, and huge slide from Lapierre off the corner. This is Zaug inside Senna, or Senna rather inside Zaug, whichever way it was.
I think that might have ended in tears. Let's have a look. No,
well, nobody on the outside.
There's yellow flags waving. So
there are yellow flags. Yeah. Maybe that. There is one. I think there is one of them off somewhere. We'll have to wait and see exactly how many Arden cars come round. Well, there you can see the 2 Campos cars close together, and it's Zaug. We've lost Zaug, have we? No, Senna and Zaug still together. Pantano, Filippi, Maldonado, Di Grassi, and so on down the order. So Conway still in 9th place behind Lucas Di Grassi.
Yeah, Zaug dropped back to 12th place.
Oh, he has dropped right down the order, yeah, so yeah. Yes. So
the loser in that one.
That was Senna down the inside of Zaug then at Chateau d'Eau, and Zaug the loser. Oh, big lock-up. Does that give Filippi a place? Yes, it does. He slips in ahead of Pantano. And behind Vitaly Petrov. Oh, Di Grassi, beg your pardon, was that, I think that would have been
Nakajima, I think, just by Negrao, I think. Carroll, no, it's Carroll, I'm sorry, Adam Carroll is being flashed up as.
Oh, right, so as this, I think, is Sandy Negrao's on board, was yesterday anyway, and that was Ammermuller going by him. Now, Ammermuller's right at the back, of course, because he was taken out of the race when Ernesto Vizo went over the back of him, and it was because there were safety car boards and yellow flags being waved halfway around the first lap. A bunch of cars slowed down, and Viso unsighted, didn't see why, tried to go through the gap between them. The gap closed, and it was Amamula's car that was the takeoff ramp. Under braking, that's brave. Pastor Maldonado for 4th place goes in front, 6th place goes in front of Luca Filippi.
Excellent move there. It's very tight down there, quite hard to pull off. You're braking downhill. It's damp. Don't forget. Good brave move.
Conway and Zaug. Zaug just holds off the English driver. Oh, it's not. That was Senna. Senna's 8th ahead of Conway. Now,
yep,
what's going
Senna
on?
slipped back. Senna slipped back to Conway, yeah.
So we've got Lapierre Villa, Petrov Filippi, Pantano, Maldonado, Di Grassi, Senna, Conway, and Zaug is in the pits.
Yep.
Is he? No, he's not. He's miles back,
24th
though.
is showing us, yeah.
And it was Tahinchi that was spun out here a lap ago. So Zaug is either limping back or gone. Well, we're obviously missing a couple of things off camera. Let's have a look at the have a look again at the start, though. Everybody sort of funneled in without too many problems. A little bit of chopping and changing down 8th, 9th, 10th ahead of Mike Conway. This is the first time, and this is the last lap.
And that's Carroll getting snagged, isn't it?
That's Tahinchi.
It's Rodriguez, actually, yeah. Rodriguez and Tahinchi, yeah.
Golden Rodriguez.
Yep.
So back with live pictures. Oh no, that's what happened to Senna. Ran out wide where everybody runs out wide. Came back on, not enough steering lock to get around. This is where you need the Monaco rack to try and get round there. And this is Pastor Maldonado's pass on Zaug.
Little squeeze.
Yep. Well, both of them very carefully watching the other. And that was good stuff by Maldonado. Stuck himself in there and held on and held on and held on. And in fact, that's the iSport car.
Glock, so that's Timo Glock.
Yep. So Andy Zuber is in the pit lane. Timo Glock also, it seems, possibly as a legacy of yesterday's incident. Although 2 drivers in yesterday's race did have gearbox woes. Pastor Maldonado was one. Luca Filippi lost 3rd place because of gearbox misselection. So it's possible that may be an unrelated incident, but coincidence is not often too far away from the truth. Now, Nicolas Lapierre, who was about 1.5 seconds, nearly 2 seconds ahead of Javier Villa, is now nothing ahead of Villa at all. That's our lead pair. Luca Filippi in 3rd. Actually was just suggesting to the racing engineering boss yesterday that perhaps Javi Villa, having had a really good run yesterday and raced up the order from something like 14th into the onto a front row grid position, might just be in the frame of mind where actually he might feel that he can go out and win this race. His confidence is growing in these cars. They were looking at the back of the car there, Gareth. It does perhaps suggest that the German had a gearbox problem. But again, you know, that could just be dropping it from a height at speed on the ground, which is effectively what they did yesterday.
Yeah, so that goes back to what you said before. You can't check for things like that. You can do what you can, but you don't really know that the car's good until you get out on the track with it. Yeah,
and unfortunately there's nowhere here, there's no airfield. You can run it up and down to test it, unlike somewhere like Le Mans, which is quite a handy thing. Quite often you see cars on the airport going up and down being tested to make sure they still work. So midfield battle with Borja Garcia. Now he was dropped right down the order after being handed a 25-second penalty post-race yesterday for speeding in the pit lane. Roldan Rodriguez losing a place to one of the DPR cars, and that was Christian Backerud going back past him, in fact. And just behind them is Sandy Negrão. So Adam Carroll was no, that's not Sandy Negrão, so that's Karen Chundok. So it's not the second. Stopped on the grid, and the officials saying that the pit lane was closed, the red light was on. Adam Carroll saying not only did he not see a red light, but he also had a blue light flashing, which suggested that he should pull over and pass, allow another car to pass. He said, and that surely wouldn't have been on if the race had been stopped properly. So he left the pit lane anyway, and then incurred a black flag and immediate disqualification. So some confusion, some mix-up there. Oh dear, that's Michel Ammermuller losing control. And Ammermuller finds himself off the track where Adrian Zaug's car is being pulled away, and it's looking very misty here. That's Christian Backerud losing his place back again to Roldan Rodriguez. It's a very entertaining battle for 14th place. It's like motorcycle or Formula Ford racing, you were saying yesterday, Gareth. It's give and take all the way round.
Yeah, some of the tactics we saw yesterday are definitely at the Formula Ford textbook, weren't they? But going back to the Viso incident, yeah, I mean, as you said, that what happened was a safety car flag had come out, and just the guys at the front just overreacted. You know, instead of them thinking, well, it's the first lap, clearly whatever's the safety car's for, it's something on the start line. But a few of them jumped on the brakes, slightly overreacted, and Viso was charging hard through the field and suddenly had nowhere to go and got launched off the back of Ammermuller. So I think Charlie should be having a word with all the drivers, really, to just remind them, you know, if a flag comes out, don't overreact, don't jump on the brakes, just come to slow down by all means, but don't come to a silly halt.
Oh, that was close. Maldonado sticking his nose in again, trying to get by Di Grassi. He's got Conway and Senna behind him. Yeah, so that's absolutely fair. I think quite often in those situations you see two or three drivers following nose to tail. It's lap one, there's a lot of rear wings in the way. Senna having a look, can't get through. That is Maldonado, so Conway is supposed to be between the two of them. He's got by Maldonado. Yeah. So Maldonado might possibly be having a bit of a repeat of yesterday's problem. But I often think, particularly on the first lap, that in fact they don't see the yellow flag or the safety car board. What they do see is suddenly a car stops in front of them, and then there's, you know, milliseconds to react before you hit it, and then the foot goes on the brake. And it's like on the motorway, the further up the queue it goes, the more dramatic the effect is. And
faster you're travelling, yeah.
And yesterday, Paul Viso was a tail of three cars. Ammermuller pulled out, so there were two cars in front of him. Ammermuller pulled out wide. There was a gap, he was going for it in the middle, and suddenly the cars on both sides must have shot backwards, it seemed to him, and he was over the top of Ammermuller as the gap closed again. Ammermuller had pulled out, seen the flag, not wanted to be pinged for overtaking under yellows, backed off heavily, and then Viso was catapulted over his rear wheel. So all in all, it was a circumstance that conspired against them all, and the merciful outcome is that nobody was injured. Certainly not in any major physical way, although I would imagine for the next few days, certainly Viso is going to be having some pretty stinking headaches.
Pretty stiff, yeah.
Yeah, very stiff. I think at the moment he's as good as he's going to feel for the next fortnight.
Indeed, and the marshals were extremely lucky too. We're very lucky that we didn't have an injury there.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy waving the yellow flag just where Viso went off mercifully was looking upstream, as indeed, you know, you would want to be, but luckily everybody was just out of the way in time. The marshals that were closest to the scene of the impact diving down the inside. Who's that then?
It was Hirati getting done by Nakajima, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? So the two Japanese swap place. In fact, reinstating himself, Hirati, because he was ahead of Nakajima, with Roldan Rodriguez behind them. This is 12th, 13th and 14th.
Zuba's a man on a mission. He's fastest on the track at the moment in the mid-23 lap times.
That's all that's left to him, isn't it?
Exactly, to salvage something from the weekend.
Lap, yeah. Easter race season, and he does know, I mean, he had a very good time last year in the British Formula 3 Championship, winning both times out on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. So it is a circuit he knows the nuances of. And
that makes a difference. I mean, they get such little track time on a race weekend, these guys, that if you know the track well, like Conway does Silverstone, that's a big help. Definitely. He could really do with that boost. I mean, we're still, you know, well, not into the middle of the season, barely scratching the season. Silverstone will only be our 5th race weekend of 11, so still a lot of racing in front of him. But at the moment, he really needs something to go his way. Only 9th in the points, and I mean, he really only has picked up points on a couple of occasions. A lot of that has been misfortune. He's not been the only one either. Andy Zuba, his retirement yesterday on the first lap was his 4th out of 6 starts. So that, not always his own fault, you have to say. No, yesterday's was.
Very bad luck, yes.
Yeah, he's had rotten luck with first gear failures, isn't he? There's been a batch that have been faulty throughout the whole field, actually. And poor old Andy Zuba has had 2 on the trot, didn't it? It was Monaco and Barcelona consecutive starts. The whole field's been issued with brand new first gears now, and we haven't had the problem this weekend, so hopefully it's cured.
Brand new rabbit's feet all round. Bit of luck. So Lapierre, Via, Filippi still seesawing to and fro. Pantaneau all on his own, and not as fast as the leaders either. He's up to half a second off the lead trio's pace. Karen Chunduk runs out wide and gives away the place to Andy Zuber. That's 18th, which might not seem like much, but on the other hand, for Zuber, it is at least some laps of Magny-Cours, which is more than he got in yesterday. So,
and he's got fastest lap at the moment as well, Andy Zuber, by quite some way. So, as we said before, he might just take something out of the weekend.
Yes.
Not just a flea in his ear from his team.
I think this will not go down as one of the highlight weekends for iSport by anyone's estimation.
No, I spoke to Richard Selwyn at iSport, and obviously they're really devastated. But I think the message to the drivers was, you know, I mean, the team had worked so hard to deliver a front row. It wasn't just about you drivers. The whole team had delivered that result. And for you to go and blow it in the way you did, it's just not on. The drivers took it on board. Obviously, they have to. You know, there's no argument about what they did.
No, absolutely right.
So lesson learned.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you might as well stick the mechanics or somebody out of the crowd in. Any fool can crash at the first corner.
That's right.
You know,
yeah.
I could have done that. So. Well, Michel, no, this is the car on the way to the grid this morning as well, as the first of his trials and tribulations. So conversely, teammate Di Grassi, well, he should have done a lot better actually. Di Grassi started in 7th, jumped up a couple, should have jumped up a couple of places away from the start, but at the moment he's only 6th. So
he's boxed in behind Petrov here, isn't he? He can't get past. But Hammerman is in a difficult position actually. Slightly, you know, he missed the last couple of race weekends through his broken wrist that he sustained in the first race at Bahrain. And both the drivers who stepped into, is that our man Nakajima? There's Lapierre. It's Lapierre.
Yeah, that's the race leader.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Just as we're wondering what we're going to talk about for the next 12-15 laps, there you go, the leader's off. A wry smile from Jean-Paul Trio. Oh, mon Dieu, I can just imagine, I can't even imagine what Lapierre is feeling
home
right now.
race as well.
On his own, under braking, Adelaide hairpin, got to be, hasn't it?
That's very strange. That's
now,
a really odd one.
I wonder whether a little localised shower has just arrived. Let's have a look. And suddenly, Javi Villa going, on the brakes. Lapierre locking up monsterly.
That's really odd, isn't it?
Nothing wrong with the nose.
Strange.
He hasn't run over his own nose. He's just skated straight off under braking. Let's have a look at the rears. Just a tight, looked like it. Tiny little puff of smoke.
Yeah,
maybe the car bottomed there. Is there a bump that he shouldn't have been on that he was offline and he was on? Do you know, no amount of commiseration is going to make any difference here. A chance to win the GP2 race in front of packed grandstands waiting for... Look, every seat in the house is full. And the chance for a Frenchman to win in front of the hugest crowd at Magny-Cours in years. And he blows it with 16 laps remaining.
It was a really strange off though, don't you think? It just looked odd. I mean, it wasn't as though he hit the brakes and everything locked up and then he made a frantic effort to try and get back on again, or come off the brakes and try and save it. He just kind of slid off.
Everything
very
locked
odd.
up.
Very odd.
Yeah. Well, we may well find out that he got onto the braking area and then his foot went to the floor and he had to pump it to get anything to stop. That may well be the case. I mean, it would be the first brake failure that I've heard of on a car, but...
my inclination is that something wasn't quite right there. I think I'd be interested to see what he says afterwards.
That little puff of smoke before everything locked up, before he drove through his own smoke, that was just a few... You know, it was a fraction of a second or so beforehand, but I don't know whether that was related or not. Further back, this is Nakajima trying to put in the moves on Senna, and Senna is not having a great time here. Didn't have a bad race yesterday, but he's really not having much of a time of it at all here. Seems completely off form. In front of him is Maldonado, and as they come across the line, of course, they all pick up a place. Now, Javi Villa is leading by a second from Luca Filippi. And Filippi, having lost a podium yesterday, will suddenly be going, oh, got to win, got to win, got to win. Because if he does win, then he'll go to Silverstone very much closer to our championship leader, Timo Glock. At the moment, he's 13 points behind, and that will make it doable. He could leave race 1 at Silverstone potentially as the points leader on Saturday, so it suddenly becomes enormously important for him. Okay, looking back at Vitaly Petrov and Lucas Di Grassi, it's obviously not wet there. That was not the problem for
I don't think it was.
Lapierre, so you've got to assume that there was a problem with the car.
Yeah, I do think it was. It didn't look like a driver error. It didn't look like it was damp. It did look as though something wasn't quite right.
Which leads you to suggest that either... No, because the fronts were... Oh, is that Conway? No, it's...
Yes, it is. We're on board with Maldonado, aren't we?
No, that's Filippi. No, it's not. Well, why would Maldonado be ahead of Conway? Conway's... Oh, yes, he was ahead of him.
Conway was ahead of him.
Right. No, absolutely. Oh, boink! And Maldonado gets a tap from Senna because he's trying to get out of the way of Nakajima.
Yeah, Conway slipping down
Maldonado
the order.
got a broken exhaust or something?
Does sound a bit rough, doesn't it?
Rougher than a badger's backside. It really sounds awful. It's dreadfully chuffing. He has got a broken exhaust, hasn't he? Yes. It's getting worse and worse.
Did he have one before Senna hit him just now?
Yes, no, he did. It sounded off for several laps every time we've gone to it. Here comes Senna down the inside. Ooh. Well, I tell you what, he's not scared about breaking a car or two.
Nakajima then he said thanks very much then.
Yeah, well, we saw that, didn't we, in the Formula 3 Euro Series race. A dice between two drivers exactly there allowed the man in the third position in the group to go straight by the pair of them. But as it is, Senna picks up 6th place and a point. So it's Villa leading by 1.3 from Filippi, and Javi Villa 2 tenths quicker than Filippi on that lap. So he's in fact extending his advantage out front. Entertaining stuff from Bruno Senna. Oh, as we go back to see Maldonado getting tapped from behind. Senna has just given away his newly claimed 6th place to Nakajima, who's gone from 8th to 6th in 1 lap. And this is Maldonado's view. Again, Senna just making contact the front wing with the rear wheel of Maldonado's car. Didn't seem to be any damage. This was down at the Adelaide hairpin a few hundred metres later. Senna down the inside of Maldonado. Nakajima slotted in the end in between the two of them, and then to complete the lap we saw Senna slide wide. In fact, looking at it now, these are live pictures, he slid wide, but Nakajima did not get by, and again Senna's car smoking.
Like yesterday. Conway's dropped out, by the way. He's in the pits.
Right.
So he was in the points.
And there he is.
Yeah.
You say it and they shall show it. Well, I wonder whether that's another gearbox problem. They're rocking the car backwards and forwards.
His luck strikes again, eh?
Well, the engine's off anyway, that's for sure, because they're wheeling the car into its pit box. I think Mike had the steering wheel out to get out, so he's out again. So it can only get better at Silverstone. Senna's car is definitely smoking. Is it bottoming? Is that what it is?
I don't know. It's, yesterday didn't look like it was. It was when he was hard on the power yesterday. It was just the last 2 or 3 laps. It's not doing that today.
Yeah. It just seemed to me that it was doing it there as there was quite a gradient change, and also under braking at the Adelaide hairpin. I wonder if it was just...
No, it was doing it through...
Well, then again, under hard acceleration off the corner, it's... Well, maybe they're just being overcautious with filling the oil up.
If it was bottoming that hard through the Imola chicane, I think he'd be in the barriers.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right.
It was smoking quite a bit there. There's Lapierre.
Dear oh dear now. Whether he's going to go to the pit wall and talk to the team, or whether he's just going to go to the hire car and drive home, who knows. Well, that's a tough way to end a weekend in France for a Frenchman, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to say, actually.
I think possibly until tomorrow it'll be pretty monosyllabic. I think the PR person will have to elaborate on the grunts. Senna definitely is smoking though.
I think that was a little lock-up then, wasn't it? And same for Nakajima as well.
again, it's possible that there might be some more spots of precipitation. Rain is forecast for the Grand Prix, and we've already had just a little smattering of spits and spots, nothing too much though. Cloud is still pretty high, and there doesn't seem to be any rain around as we look around the surrounding area. However, that doesn't mean that there's not just a few little bits coming down. Soucek versus Maldonado. These two spent a lot of time in this kind of proximity last year in the World Series by Renault, and here in Renault's second top step of the ladder, close together again, and
we'll bang it.
Yes, Maldonado's teammate is on the wrong end of that, between Garcia and Roldan Rodriguez. So Kohei Hirate, the man who gets the little tap. Does he keep it out of the gravel? He does. Good enterprising stuff from Rodriguez, though. He's turning into quite a feisty little racer, actually, as the season progresses.
Yeah, well, Hirate left a gap, didn't he? Just wide enough for a car to get through, so you did that.
Really
you're asking him. It was by the time they came out the corner.
Yes, well, yes, it just needed a degree of widening. There is the talking about widening, there is the gap from first to second. Javi Villa from Luca Filippi.
He's doing very well, isn't he? He's up to 1.3 seconds on the timing monitor, but visibly it's fairly comfortable, isn't it? Yeah,
it certainly is. It's a good old gap, because Filippi's not going to outbreak him from that sort of distance. Not in anybody's race. Pantano as well, 2.2 seconds behind them, and he's barely keeping touch with the pace of Javier Villa, the race leader. So Villa doing a very good job with 5 left to go. So this battle further back may well be the tail end battle at the moment, or just about the tail end. Zuba chasing Carroll, chasing Yamamoto. Roldan Rodriguez here in replay, going down the inside and making another good pass. And that was, I don't know, about his 7th or 8th. And what we've just seen in the grandstands is umbrellas going up and cagoules going on. No sign of Scotch eggs yet, so we are at a race, not at a rally, but it's going to be interesting to find out exactly where it is. And unfortunately, the directors, there's a spot. So again, we're looking at the sort of, is that easterly side of the circuit, easterly? Yeah, eastern side of the circuit, being the one that receives the weather first. Down at the Adelaide hairpin.
He's close now, isn't he? I mean, this is the last thing you need as the race leader. Just so, 4 laps away from your first ever GP2 win, and suddenly it starts to rain.
Yes.
It's as if you've got enough on your plate and enough to worry about.
Well, suddenly you're right. The 2 more experienced drivers behind, perhaps, Luca Filippi in second, and yesterday's winner in third, Giorgio Pantano, going, OK, bring it on, here we go. But Villa, I think he might have the confidence and the inspiration to hang on to this. It is all about him now, it's not about them. All he's got to do is concentrate on line and length and braking points and turning points, and forget the weather and forget the cars and forget the pit board, and just do what he's done for the last dozen laps.
Plus, as quick as Filippi's catching him, Pantano's catching Filippi. So hopefully, from Villa's point of view, Filippi will have his hands full with dealing with Pantano, and there's only 2 laps left.
Yeah.
It could play into his hands.
Lap 26 of 28 then. Javi Villa leading by 0.8 of a second, and that's why a 1.9 second advantage was so important to him, because it's allowed him just to be a 10th more cautious at every braking area, just to make sure he doesn't get caught out, because the others behind can only benefit if Javi Villa really stands it on its nose and then is the first to find out that it's wet. And as we talked about earlier, this resurfaced Magny-Cours may not be giving the drivers quite the indication they need as to where water might be arriving, and it's all very well to see slippery surface flags, but that's not necessarily going to be quite in time. Well, Kohei Hirate making a nice little dive bomb pass on Borja Garcia, who is just slowly slipping back down the order. Garcia now down to 13th place, because Christian Baccarat, as you see, has got by him as well. And again, I wonder whether he's having gearbox problems as well. Yeah, it's very easy to sort of blame any change of form on gearboxes, and that's perhaps entirely unfair, particularly when we know how much effort has been put into the revised gearboxes. But we did still have 2 drivers in yesterday's race dramatically losing places because of selection woes. And again, when we say gearbox, of course, Gareth, it's not necessarily the gears or anything inside the casing itself, because all the electrical control systems, the hydro pneumatics and everything else involved, you know, somewhere up the linkage between fingertip and clunk, there's any number of places a gremlin can get in.
I mean, it has been the Achilles heel of the car, the gearbox. You know, in the 3 years this car's been used for GP2, and generally it has been the mechanical end of things that's let it down. And that's something they've addressed with a new car. The new car comes out for the 2008 season next year, and there's a brand new housing for that, 100% aluminium, so lighter, and reworked internals as well. So hopefully it should sort out some of the reliability issues.
Well, we're on the last lap of the race. This is a battle for just about last place. In fact, it's not quite, because Garcia, Chandok, Tung are now behind them all.
No, this is Petrov, Senna, Nakajima, isn't it?
Right,
this is the last point.
Senna,
In fact, this is 5th, 6th, 7th.
And Senna loses it.
Settles it.
Nakajima goes around the outside. Where Nakajima's got all these outside passes from, Lord only knows. However,
himself a point.
Javi Villa is going to win his first GP2 race. He comes out of the Lycée hairpin for the final time, and Racing Engineering, from the depths of despair on lap 1 yesterday to elation, they claim, or that he claims, his first win in the GP2 series. What a weekend for that team. 0.6 at the line ahead of Luca Filippi, Giorgio Pantano in 3rd. Big scoring day again for Filippi and Pantano. Vitaly Petrov behind Lucas Di Grassi. Nakajima takes 6th. We saw Senna spin out as Nakajima went around the outside, so he misses out on the point. 7th position for the Brazilian, and in 8th place, Pastor Maldonado, again slipping out of a points place during the course of the race.
Great drive from Villa. Really soaked up the pressure very well, looked very comfortable, and as you said, very justice, I think, for Racing Engineering after what happened to Villa's teammate Viso yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. The highs and the lows, and obviously everybody in the paddock, I think, will be pleased for the team, because there, but for the grace of God, goes everybody whenever you see a big accident like that. And Javi Villa, well, he's been on the front row before, hasn't he? He's had pole position for a sprint race. And we pretty much guessed that what was going to happen happened. He would be passed by a couple of more experienced drivers behind him. But now I think, particularly after yesterday's tigering race, the confidence was there to take the opportunity when it arose when Nicola Lapierre went off, and to claim his first win. Well, Bruno Senna there trying desperately to hang on to 6th position in the final point, or in fact to avoid being passed. That's all it was about. Couldn't quite do it on the final lap, but Javier Villa, the youngster from Spain, claims his first GP2 win, and that's a very, very big coming of age for him. Well, we talked about how often in the last couple of seasons it's been a turning point for different teams putting themselves right into contention here, and championship turning point. Well, it has been particularly for Racing Engineering here as well, and not in the way that yesterday might have suggested it was going to be. They now have 2 potential race winners in the fold, although Ernesto Viso certainly won't be back for another race weekend or 2. Possibly he might be fit enough to race in Germany, but certainly not at Silverstone next weekend. That's how they finish then. Javier Villa, Luca Filippi and Giorgio Pantano. Filippi, having lost out on the podium yesterday, finishes in 2nd place ahead of yesterday's winner for Campos, Giorgio Pantano. And after yesterday, it's only the BCN competition team that have yet to win in the 2.5 seasons of GP2 racing. And down towards the end we saw lots of battling, but Mike Conway, Nicola Lapierre, Sandy Negrão, Timo Glock, Adrian Zaug, none of those made it to the end, and Lapierre, I should think, will be the most dismally depressed of the whole lot, having led the race until inexplicably going straight off into the gravel traps and out of contention. championship as they head to Silverstone, still headed by Timo Glock, but his lead substantially reduced, now just 8 points over Luca Filippi. Lucas de Grassi in third position, looking strong as well. So everything to play for at Silverstone. Again, 2 races on the circuit, the home of the British Racing Drivers Club and the British Grand Prix. And well, who knows, we might see another new winner. So far we have no 2-time winners this year. 7 races, 7 different race winners. The GP2 producing spectacle, incident and accident, but as unpredictable and as exciting as it's ever been.